Another episode of Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I am your guide and host through the show as always. And today, once again, is our monthly series, our one of our oldest monthly series and our most popular monthly series called Learn with a Lender with Joel Schaub from Guaranteed Rate. Now, Joel is vice president of lending at Guaranteed Rate. He's got to that level for basically what he does for clients, which is he specifically gives back part of his commission every time back to the buyer. Now, last year alone, Joel gave back almost $300,000 in closing costs to buyers who worked with him, which puts Joel's volume in the top 0.1% of all lenders nationwide. Now, out of 400,000 loan officers in the country, Joel is currently ranked number 137. And last year, he closed 535 transactions, his highest amount ever. And that was for almost 200 million. This year already, we're only getting towards the end of July here, but already he has closed 383 transactions for 155 million. This is, when we bring on partners on the show, we want people who are true experts in their field. Of course, Joel is. Now, if you are looking for a loan officer, we cannot more highly recommend Joel. He's the very best we've ever worked with. Joel can be reached at Joel. So here's his email, joel@rate.com. Again, Joel, Joel @rate.com, or you can shoot him a text message or call him at 773-654-2049. Let's say hello to the biggest Cubs fan I know. Joel, welcome once again.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, DJ. Really great to be here. And all those accolades, they kind of even impress me when I hear them. But I've told you this before, none of the numbers matter. It's all about giving back and actually having the agents get something from every time they tune in to Keeping It Real. So congratulations on your success in doing this for so long. It's impressive.
Thank you. It's fun because it's funny, like in the last couple of months, and just to pull back the curtain slightly on our show, I talked to Zana, who's our producer. If you ever reach out to our show, she's usually the person that contacts people back, whether it's a guest and all of a sudden I said to Zana, we need to get more sponsors. And so we kind of started to come up with a plan, and just so happened that as we were trying to formulate our plan to get more sponsors, not people like yourself to bring on the show, we would never want to change that, but just people, advertisers and things. And all of a sudden we have now started getting a flood of advertisers, basically tech companies mostly, who want to advertise on our show. Now, for our episodes, of course, we only talk about Guaranteed Rate. But what's very exciting is, to your point, is it took about 5 years of constantly really pumping out the content. And now all of a sudden, of course, we have a much larger listener base, mostly due to our guests providing such incredible content, Joel, of course, like you do, every single month. And so Joel is a living example of just discipline, hard work, and consistency. This podcast is really nothing other than me doing this every single week for many years. It does work. This is a relationship business, and people are going to get hooked on, in our case, our content from our podcast. In Joel's case, how his partnerships that he builds with real estate agents. In fact, we were talking offline just before we started, and Joel said, I really used to focus almost exclusively on refis. He goes, I now focus most of my time on building partnerships with other realtors, which has obviously been very successful for you.
DJ, last week I had an agent ask me something very similar to what you were just talking about here, which is, how do you get to a point where you're doing 50 transactions each and every single month?
Right.
And it's just consistency. So
Joel is on his way back. So we lost you, but you're back. So
I'm
sorry,
horrified and mortified when it connects like that or it goes out, but I know that you handled it while I stepped away.
We're going to fix it in post, so not a big deal. I kept the live viewers entertained while we were waiting, so no big deal. It happens.
Okay, well, I'm going to tune in to see if you juggled or what you did while I was gone.
I did juggle.
But the question here, I literally had an agent, DJ, that asked me last week about when you were talking about the numbers, right? How do you close 50 transactions a month? And I mean, is somebody else doing the work? And the answer is no. I actually speak to every single borrower and I help them. And when I went through that with them, no matter what you're doing, you're always busy, right? But
Yeah.
it's important to find somebody that's one step above you and then mentor them. So if it's somebody in your office, if you're right now doing 2 or 3 transactions a month and you want to build it up to 5 or 10, find somebody that you can mentor or that can mentor you so that you can take it to the next level. And then what I also said was, just like anything when it comes to like a podcast or being a realtor, the barrier of entry is low. And the
Yeah,
reason you're successful and the reason that we've become successful is just one thing: it's consistency. It
it
doesn't
is.
happen overnight. You've built this by doing it every single time the same way.
You're exactly right. And I suspect if I were to ask you, do you consider yourself to be, the very smartest or the best loan officer on the planet? Or people might ask me, wow, you're really good at podcasting. I'm like, I don't know that I'm so good at it. I just know that I do it a lot. And I get guests who probably provide much better content than I could, but I don't think of it as, it's not just because I'm naturally skilled at communicating. In fact, as a podcast host, I'd be better at listening than I would should be at talking. But the reality of it is I just do. Nobody else is doing it this much. And again, yes, there's a little bit of skill involved, and you of course have tremendous skill. I don't want to take away from that, but your consistency is really the key to your success. I think if I don't want to speak for you, but I know that that's a big factor.
It's experience. It's just doing it repetitively. So it's literally, no, you're not insulting me at all. My skills are only okay. What made me to the level where I could do it was putting in the time and creating a plan. And the
Right.
plan was to go after purchase business and be different. And it was about creating a brand so that people recognized the brand, because there's a lot of lenders, and just like all the realtors out there, there's a lot of competition. So differentiating yourself, staying consistent, and doing the 1 or 2 things that actually provide value back to the clients versus trying to be everything to everybody. So the big core thing that I do is long education sessions right up front with clients. And even if you're not great, you can be an educator. And that takes you so much further than any sales course, any tips and tricks on how to get people to do things. No, it doesn't work that way. If you can provide value and learn what you're good at and what you can teach, that's how people are going to listen to you as the expert. And so the same way, keeping it very consistent and doing it repetitively is going to be better than any kind of like sales course that you could ever take to try to get people to do what you want them to do. And that's not the way we operate, and you know that.
I do. And I've had firsthand experience working with you and your team. And it is truly remarkable just how well oiled and professional you guys are, specifically around education. And I think that's, your major differentiator. Of course, lots of loan officers are out there, 400,000 in the country. And I wonder what percentage of them the client would say, boy, they really, really, not did they give me a great rate? Because lots of loan officers can do that. But did they educate? Do I know what's going on? Do
Mm-hmm.
I feel confident in this closing? Do I feel like I'm not in the dark? But I wanted to talk about which, of course, you guys do a great job of. But I did want to talk about what's some pretty exciting news on the refi side,
Mm-hmm.
which has to do with a fee that was introduced during the pandemic to help offset some of the costs that the banks were incorporating, and that fee is now going away. So could you mind sharing just a little bit about what that means, how to talk about it if you're a realtor?
Yeah, this week alone, rates are drastically lower than they've been in months and months, especially on the refinance transactions. Last year, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac enacted a adverse market fee. Okay, effectively overnight, it meant that a $400,000 loan was 50 basis points more expensive to originate, and all the banks passed that along. Thank you, banks. Passed it right along to the customer. So what does that mean? Rates didn't go up a 0.5%. The cost to get a specific rate went up a 0.5% in points.
Right.
So a $400,000 loan cost $2,000 more the next day, and all banks did was bake that into the rate. So effectively, rates went up on refinances last year.
Right.
A week ago, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac overnight without warning said that fee is now gone. And most banks now originating loans going forward saw rates drop by an eighth or a quarter point overnight. Okay. So how is this an opportunity? We're realtors, right? If I'm a realtor listening, I'm not necessarily so concerned with what a client has once they own a house, but you should be.
Yeah.
It's a real opportunity, DJ. And if I was an agent right now and I had an extra hour or two, I would create a list of all my clients that had closed and simply call them and say, now that we're closed, it does make sense for you at least to call back the bank that did the mortgage and see if you could refinance to a lower rate for free. Okay.
Yeah, and you're saving, like you said, on a $400,000 loan. You're saving 2 grand in closing in those refi fees. That is a substantial amount to refi. And also, by the way, you're getting a better rate, possibly.
Because last year, DJ, you're exactly right. People bought before and rates were really low last year, but a lot
Mhm.
of borrowers found when they called their bank that they weren't eligible for the rate that everybody else was getting, right? Because of that adverse market fee. So it meant that borrowers that were buying homes last year were seeing rates under 3%, but consistently the refinance rate was above that. And it cost a lot of money. So a lot of people sat on the sidelines. Now's the time. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And right now, for the next couple of weeks, we anticipate these rates being below 3% on average across the board, even for refinances. So if I'm an agent, I'm making some phone calls and it's going to do one of two things. One, it's going to keep you in touch with your past clients, which is a big plus. Okay. You tell them the big secret is calling their bank and not asking what the lowest rate is. Okay. Calling them back and asking what the lowest rate is, but then asking what rate can I get if I pay no closing costs? What's the true no closing cost rate? And that's where the banks will say, okay, I can get you down 150 or $200 a month without paying any fees. And that's the real secret. There's always a rate that's probably lower than what you have now, where you don't have to pay anything at all. No appraisal, no title fees, no processing fees. And if that saves you over $100 a month, it's worth the paperwork to sign and get a lower rate. It wasn't available before, now it is.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and the amount of work that it takes for a current loan holder to refi is not a if unless there's been what major life event changes. It's usually a pretty simple process.
Banks make it hard, but that's why
Well,
you go
sure.
back to the person that helped you. If you don't have the right person, you can definitely reach out to us. But refinancing, DJ, is really simple. As long as you've continued the job and you've made the payments on time, it is a few pieces of paper that do need to be signed, updated income and asset statements, and a lot of times they don't even need the appraisal now. So there's a lot less that goes into it. Okay. The second thing, remember I told you there were two things, right? The
Yes.
second thing would be hopefully that just by reaching out, they say, thank you so much for the information. My brother, Jim and Susie are getting ready to buy a home. I'd like to introduce you. So it's that consistent touch. If I'm an agent and I have time on my hands, and I know a lot of us don't, but call blocking and setting time just to call back your past clients. And it sounds like this. Hey, Kevin, it's Joel. I know that we closed a year ago. How are you? Good. I'm sure you've probably seen it in the news, but rates are down right now on mortgages. So I think it might be a good time for you to reach back out to the mortgage guy who helped us close this deal and see if you could save some money. I don't know if it's right for you or not, but I wanted to pass that along to you. It's as simple as that. You're connecting and you're adding value, and that helps, right, DJ?
It's really just that simple. It does help, and I'm just going to make up a number here, but I would guess 99% of realtors do not do that. We can be generous and say 95% maybe of realtors don't, but it's probably almost 100% don't. So this is a really an amazing tip, because we all know that, we think, okay, the transaction's closed. It's been 3 years. I don't really want to call them and say, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling right now? Which of course you can do, but a lot of agents are not comfortable with that call because it feels salesy. It
Mhm.
feels not as authentic. But like Joel said at the very beginning of the call, if you have some knowledge or some education to provide to them, you never have to ask for the business, although you can always ask if you want. But education cuts through all of that discomfort because you're just literally saying, hey, I just thought about you. Here's a possible opportunity. And Joel said it really well, saying, I don't know if this is right for you or not, but it's worth a phone call. And again, the only thing, there's no negative that can happen. There's only positive. Even if the homeowner just goes, no, we're good at the moment, they're going to go, wow, that was nice of our agent to think about us after the sale.
A few minutes of time, DJ, on a phone call where you're not getting anything from it and you're not expecting anything from it. So you're not calling saying, if you know anybody who wants to buy or sell, call me, right? That line is
Right.
all played out. What you really want to do is actually be in their best interest, care about them. A few minutes to say, I think it makes sense for you to call the mortgage bank back could really be a benefit because you never know who they know. And the more you can stay in touch with them with these little nuggets of value, they're going to remember that. And when they move, they'll remember you. Or if their brother, sister, family member is looking to buy or sell, they're going to refer you because you called without any dollar amount in mind. You're not trying to make money, but you got to set a time. You got to set the time aside. Okay, and it has to be you. It can't be your assistant.
Yeah.
These don't have to be long calls. And it's even good if you even got a voicemail. Just leave the message saying, there's no need to call me back. I was just thinking of you. I'm sure you heard the news about rates being down. Now's a good time to see if you could save some money. Call me if it ends up happening. That kind of thing.
It's such a simple, and it's really oftentimes the best ideas are the most simple. That's what Occam's razor, I think, is what that's called. But the idea is that the consistency. So you can do it once and you might get some benefit. Maybe somebody will call you back and say, oh, by the way, I have another friend who needs your help. But consistency. So do you have to do it every month? Maybe not a phone call every month. I don't know. Maybe you could, but think, you have to create a structure and say every however many months, every 3 months, I'm going to be calling them with some idea or some education or whatever timeline you think is appropriate. But you have to track it. You have to have it scheduled, and you just have to do it. And you'll find it'll take time. It might be 2 years of doing this, and then all of a sudden, boy, the referrals and other opportunities will just keep rolling in, just like it did for you in your business, Joel. It's worked out like that here at our podcast as well. So consistency, education, really are the two keys: consistency and education.
We at our group right now are already planning the 2022 closings, right? So there's two types of business, right? It's what we're going to do right now to get new transactions in the door. And it's also what we're doing today that we know will result in closed transactions 6 to 12 months from now. And that is what we just talked about. These type of phone calls right now aren't going to result in deals today for you. These are the planning so that you are busy in the times where it's not so busy. Okay. Taking the time so that you can block and make calls to people that already know, like, and trust you. Okay. If you close the deal, they know you. Hopefully, they still like you. And if you did a good job, they trust you. Okay. And that's how right now we're doing 20 to $30 million of closings every single month consistently at that level because of what we did 6 months ago and the
Right.
month before that is planning for the future. And a lot of people just focus on what they're doing today. So I challenge everybody to call block, put some time aside, and you don't have to change things overnight. Everybody always underestimates what they can do in a year and they overestimate what they can do in a week. I'm going to call everyone I know in a week.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're not going to, you haven't done it before. You're not going to do it now. Set small blocks aside and make a few phone calls and get comfortable. And you'll see you're really providing value. And now you're providing something that's relevant, timely, and in the news. Rates are down. Did you know this is how it could benefit you? And I guarantee you, this will result in new deals for you if you're an agent.
And I recommend everyone who is listening, who's of course a realtor, to pay attention to to lending news. You can subscribe to all, there's lots of websites that will kind of give you a daily briefing on here's what's going on. And most of the time it probably won't apply to a realtor's direct business. But the reason I knew about this refi rate being removed officially next month across all institutions, Joel's company's already removed it, is because I pay attention to the news. And I don't, half the time I look at it, I don't know what I'm looking at, but this one caught my eye. And so as a realtor, you don't always have to wait for our episode to give you these kind of tidbits. You can do what I did, which was just, do a little Googling and set up some alerts around mortgage news so that you get notified, because your clients probably aren't, buyers and sellers, your homeowners are not probably paying attention to lending rates once they move in. They're sort of done. They're moving on with their lives. They're not thinking about it. But you can think about it as a realtor and stay in touch, and it gives you a reason to reach out.
There's one site on the internet that's an unbiased behind the scenes for mortgage that a lot of realtors check out. Okay. And it's called Mortgage News Daily. Okay.
Nice.
So it's just as simple as mortgagenewsdaily.com, and it's free. You'll be able to look and see what people in the industry know. It has very good news feeds so that you can pick up on things that you can, when you're driving people around, it's important to have stories. People connect with stories, and
Mm.
what's better than true life current things that are happening. So I encourage everybody, it's a free plug. They don't pay me, but I've been subscribing to them and checking them out daily. I get an email from them. Mortgage News Daily. It's the behind the scenes. It gets quoted on CNBC and
Oh,
CNN,
sure.
etc.
It's
So
it's
check
not
that
it's
out if
not the
you're.
prettiest looking website, but it is probably the best aggregator of mortgage articles. That's what I use Mortgage News Daily. I look at it for about 5 seconds a day. I
Yeah.
scan to see if there's a headline that I understand, because a lot of it's really industry specific, but that's how I knew about the rate being removed by the Fed. So very exciting stuff. So realtors, it just doesn't mean you have to study things for an hour a day. Just spend half a minute knowing what's going on in the world of lending, of course, in the world of real estate. I started making these 1 minute videos, which I just started doing for about what's going on in the Chicago market, because I know that even our own realtors probably aren't looking at the market stats. So I started creating 60-second videos because our agent said, "Hey, could you give us little bite-sized tips?" And so we've only done about 3 of them so far. But if I can do them for a year, I want to get our agents hooked on this content. So get yourself hooked on someone's content, whether it's this podcast or others. Joel, of course, is a great resource to all realtors who want to partner up and actually help build their businesses together. Can you talk just a little bit about sort of the partnerships that you were looking for with other agents?
Well, a lot of people have literally heard me on over the last several years and actually have tested me. They've reached out on a Saturday and I've answered, and I've replied to emails, just helping them with nothing in return, where they say, "Hey, I got a situation with this current lender. What should I do?" And I help them through that. But we're licensed in all 50 states. I focus primarily on just north of a dozen states so that I can keep the licensing and be up to date on taxes and transfer fees, et cetera, so I can speak intelligently. But if it's in a state that I personally don't handle, I have a staff of people that handle all 50 states. And right now, the partnerships, quite literally, if you don't have a mortgage partner, you just have somebody that you're giving deals to, they should be helping you. Okay, they should either be helping you on co-marketing, spending money on your lead sources, helping you on your open houses. It's got to be a real partnership. And I know a lot of lenders out there are saying, "Shh, don't say this," but they should be spending money on you. Okay, RESPA compliant ways where they can contribute money to either your marketing campaigns or your open houses. And that's what a real partnership is based on. So I never go to agents and ask them, "Send me your deals." I like to learn what they're doing to get business and figure out true bona fide ways that I can add value, whether it's writing a check or helping them on open houses or creating marketing events. There's a lot of ways that a real estate mortgage professional teamwork go together. So if you don't have somebody like that and you're working with somebody right now, ask them what they'll contribute, because right now the lenders are busy and they should have money. I know a lot of people on my team personally reach out to agents and help them on a lot of the different campaigns that they're working on. And they should be willing to. And if they're not, move on. Find a lender that will help you. Okay. It's got to be a two-way street.
And if you'd like to work with Joel or reach out to him for any reason, and you should, definitely email him at joel@rate.com, or send him a text or call him directly on his phone, which is 773-654-2049. And as Joel said, Guaranteed Rate is licensed in all 50 states. Joel himself works with about a dozen states, but he can pass you over to someone else in the event that you need more expertise in a state where he is not primarily focused. But they can, Guaranteed Rate's awesome. They did my most recent purchase, and I couldn't more highly recommend them. Well, Joel, what a great episode once again. And as before we leave, we want to just remind everyone the best way you can help support our shows to tell a friend. Think of one other real estate professional that could benefit from hearing this great conversation with Joel, and send them a link to the show. Best way to do that, just send them to our website, which is keepingitrealpod.com. In fact, if you scroll down on the homepage, you can see all of the different episode categories we have, including Learn with a Lender with Joel Schaub. And you can actually see all of the Joel Schaub episodes right there in case you wanted to go through and binge listen to all of them. Which you may and you probably should do, because every single month we don't really talk about rates much at all. We really just talk about ideas that realtors should be implementing to grow their business. That is the purpose of the Learn with a Lender series, even though of course, Joel is not an agent, but he works exclusively with agents. And so he is always so much great content in there. So go back and listen to those old episodes, and you don't have to pay much attention to an episode 2 years ago where we talk about the rates, because that may not be applicable now. But if you just wait a little bit in the episode, you'll hear a great tip. So go back, tell your friends about the show, keepingitrealpod.com, or just have them pull up a podcast app and search for Keeping It Real and hit the subscribe button once it comes up. And of course, reach out to Joel. Definitely he and his team are exceptional. They're great. And I say this a lot, but we get pitched a lot on this show to bring other lenders. Of course, lots of lenders would love to get in front of our audience. We, of course, turn them all down because Joel is the best we've ever worked with. So check him out, joel@rate.com, or call him at his number that we provided. Joel, thanks once again for being on the show, and we will see you next time.
This was really good. I know we added a lot of value. It was great. And I'll see you again soon, DJ.
Thanks, Joel.
Bye.